All right, so this is the last video for tissues, and it's about specific types of connective tissue. And yes, I did get new glasses. Liesel, my daughter, picked them out for me, so I'll wear them for a little bit, but I think they're going to hurt a little bit. So loose connective tissue is a specific category of connective. Okay, that's enough. Wardrobe change. Okay, started to itch. Loose connective tissue is a category of connective tissue that has fewer cells and protein fibers than dense. Okay, so not as many fibers, not as many cells. They're abundant ground substance, so more of that extra stuff. And this is the body's packing material. Their support structures. We're going to have areolar, adipose, and reticular. Areolar, it is a whole bunch of collagen elastic fibers that are organized. It's extremely vascularized, meaning blood supply. We're going to have fixed cells in there, wandering cells, a viscous ground substance. We're going to see it in the dermis and in the subcutaneous layer, which is right underneath the dermis of the skin. And it's going to surround organs, support them, protect them. That's areolar. And that's what it looks like. All the collagen fibers in green there, elastic fibers in green, ground substance, and different cells within it. Adipose tissue is fat, so it's mostly composed of adipocytes. Those are the fat cells. White fat can be white, act as an insulator, cushion, stores energy. Brown fat is different. It's more found in newborns. It generates heat, but we lose it as we get older. We lose our baby fat. It turns into white fat. And this is interesting. Adipose numbers, adipocytes remain stable. You don't lose fat cells, you just lose the fat within the cells. The fat cells can enlarge or shrink with fat gain or fat loss. So here's the adipocytes, this whole area. It kind of looks like honeycomb. The middle area, the lipid inclusions, the technical term, is where the fat is deposited or lost. The nuclei you can see here in the green as well. Reticular connective tissue. Again, we're going to have fibers, in this case reticular fibers, that's the name. Fibroblasts, leukocytes, which are white blood cells. So this is going to be associated tissue with lymphatic organs, the spleen, the thymus, lymph nodes, and then your bone marrow. And I think it kind of looks like a branch trees. Here's the fibers, the cells within it, macrophages, leukocytes, ground substance. The dense connective tissue. So there's many more protein fibers. There's not as much ground substance. And the main fiber is collagen. 3 categories: dense, irregular, and elastic. Dense regular is tightly packed, parallel collagen lines, fibers. They do look like stacked lasagna noodles. We find this in the tendons and the ligaments. Very few blood vessels. That's why tendons or sprains, things like that, don't heal quickly, because they don't have as much blood vessel. And that's what it looks like, stacked lasagna noodles. There's a nuclei there. Dense irregular. Now, it looks similar to dense regular, except the fibers are going every which direction. Doesn't have much order to it. We're going to have a lot in your dermis, the bottom layer of your skin. It has a lot of blood, so that's different from dense connective tissue. Here's what it looks like. So collagen fibers, a lot of collagen. So in the skin, we have a lot of collagen, ground substance. Elastic connective tissue, it has many elastic fibers, which makes sense. It's able to stretch like that hair tie and recoil. We see it in the walls of the arteries. The arteries are the large blood vessels that come off the heart and that contain blood under high pressure. So as the blood goes through it, the blood vessels need to be able to stretch and recoil back. So we also find it in your trachea, as the trachea is collapsible to a point, and in your vocal cords. My vocal cords are stretching right now. And this is what elastic connective tissue looks like. We didn't actually look at this in the lab area. We also didn't look at this connective tissue, loose connective tissue. So that's why you're probably not that familiar with those two, because we didn't actually look at those. Okay, so next, supporting connective tissue. We have cartilage and then we have bone. Cartilage is firm. The matrix is semi-solid. I like to think of that as like a jello. The collagen and elastic protein fibers. The chondrocytes these are actually cartilage cells. They're called chondrocytes. And they're going to live in this little small burrow that's called a lacuna. I think the lacuna look like where the seeds of I just forgot the name, pomegranate. They kind of look like that. And it's surrounded by a dense connective tissue covering. So let's look at the different types of cartilage. So cartilage is, before we get there, cartilage is more flexible than bone. So we still need to they support your body, but they withstand like a deformation. Like, so your nose, it's strong, but you can manipulate it a little bit, cause it to change shape. The ear too, okay? It's avascular in mature state, meaning you don't have blood. So when you get your nose pierced, which I've done before, get your ear pierced, there's not really lots of blood. 3 types: hyaline, fibrocartilage, and elastic. Hyaline is the most common. It's located in the nose, the trachea, and your larynx, so your voice box here. It's also in your costal cartilage. At the ends of the long bones, like here's your femur, at the end, the top and the bottom, we have it covered in hyaline cartilage. Costal cartilage is the parts of your ribs that attach your ribs to your breastbone that allows your thoracic cavity to expand. And it's most of your fetal skeleton is hyaline cartilage. And here's what it looks like underneath the microscope. This is what I think looks like the that fruit pomegranate, the little lacuna. Hyaline, okay, fibrocartilage is another type of cartilage that bears more weight, resists compression. It's located in intervertebral discs, in between the bones in your spine, those discs. Have you ever heard of somebody if they had a slip disc, that disc will move out of place? It's very painful. Pubic symphysis is where your 2 pubic bones in front connect. There's a little bit of cartilage there. So women, when they're pregnant, that gets looser because of hormones, allowing the hips to stretch apart. We also see this in the knee joints of the menisci. And that's what fibrocartilage, it stains a blue color. And those are the little lacunae with the nucleus, and they're the cells. So fibrocartilage. The last type of cartilage is elastic cartilage. It's very flexible, springy, has many elastic fibers. That's what makes it springy. So it's very resilient and flexible. It resists deformation pressure, has many chondrocytes, or those cartilage cells, closely packed. Where do we see it? The external ear. So you can do, oh, look at that. Okay. Lots of squishing. That kind of hurts a little bit, but all that good stuff. You can sleep on it, mess it up, and it's fine. And we also see it in the epiglottis. The epiglottis is the flap that when you swallow food, water, it covers your trachea so you don't get food down the wrong pipe. Oops. And that's what it looks like, elastic cartilage there. All right. Bone is also a type of connective tissue. It offers more support compared to flexibility. It's more solid than cartilage. It's going to contain organic compounds like collagen, but it also contains inorganic compounds like calcium. The cells within them are called osteocytes, okay? The details here of the bone, don't worry. The details here that you need to know for the tissues, it's more solid than cartilage, greater support, but less flexibility. All this stuff, we're going to talk more about in chapter 7 when we get to the bones. There are 2 types of bones. If you notice the tissue slide of the bone, it looks kind of like if you were to cut trees horizontally, right? The tree rings, those are the cylindrical structures that you see in bone tissue. A bunch of those put together, and they have a circle area. Let's look at it right here. There you go. It looks like a whole bunch of those put together. That's what bone tissue is. This middle area is where the blood supply goes to the bones, and the other area is the bone, calcified matrix. So there is another type of bone called spongy bone, but we did not look at that in the tissue slide. So why do we have bones? For movement, to support the tissues, protect organs. And again, that's the main thing we need to focus on for the tissues. That we have two different types of fluid connective tissue, blood and lymph. We'll focus on blood here. The blood contains white blood cells, red blood cells. Erythrocytes are red blood cells that transport gases. There's also liquid portion in there called plasma. Underneath the microscope, we can see the circular red blood cells, and that's pretty much it. We didn't look at a lymph fluid side or tissue slide, so nothing really much to say there, except it's a type of connective tissue. All right. So, what are the three basic components of connective tissue? We have the fibers, we have the cells, and we have the ground substance. And that ground substance can be solid, it can be semi-solid, it can be liquid. In what ways does connective tissue provide a structural framework? Again, it's those fibers. And then whether, like bone, for example, is a hard matrix that provides a structural framework. What type of embryonic connective tissue provides supportive structures in the umbilical cord? That would be that special one. Wharton's jelly is what one book called it. I forget what this one book called it, but it's very specialized. Comparing loose connective to dense, the dense connective tissue had the lasagna layers, so more organized, and dense connective tissue was in tendons and ligaments. And it didn't have good blood supply. Loose connective tissue was found in the dermis, and it does have good blood supply. And the location of fibrocartilage, we find this in the pubic symphysis. We also find it in the intervertebral discs. And that is the end of the connective tissue specifics.